What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another CadPop Patreon Decktech. Let's hit it right now. All right, we are back, and we've got a Patreon supporter submitted deck list today. Partner commanders Rowan and Will Kenrith, submitted by Greg Jones over at patreon.com/CadPopCast. Want your deck featured? It's one of the benefits to becoming a patron. Links in the show notes, links are in the notes below, and I'm doing a new thing now. If there are altered cards in the decks that I'm featuring, or if I've altered cards in the decks that I'm featuring, I'm shooting those over to Joe, the editor for these shows, and Joe does a really great job, so thank you, Joe. I'm going to have him add those, and if you want to have your altered art cards featured, it's kind of a double whammy Patreon benefit, because the altar of the day at CadPopCast on Twitter showcases those cards, but this gives us another opportunity to do it right now. So, altered art cards, discounts on cards, having your cards featured on YouTube and Twitter, and having your deck featured, all Patreon benefits. Additionally, of course, my unending thanks. You guys make the show go around, and I certainly couldn't do it without you, let me tell you. Now, before we get to the deck, big thank you to FusionGamingOnline.com. They're your source for all of your gaming needs. You can go there, you can pick up the cards that I talk about today. I get a ton of cards from Fusion. They're super fast, very affordable, even when you convert over to American prices, because they are Canadian. And don't forget, they are a local game store, and I have been there, Winnipeg, Manitoba. If you don't want to shop online because you think you're not supporting local, because that is important right now, particularly this time of year, Fusion is a local game store to some people, and they do have a brick and mortar store that people can walk into and play games. Again, not right now, but someday in the very near future. All that being said, let's get to the deck. And again, big thank you to Greg for sending it in. He did have me alter his Will and Rowan Kenrith to be together. And for example, on the Will, I did paint out the Rowan, and on the Rowan, I did paint out the Will, and I made them into a panorama. And it is a gift for his niece, a deck that they built together. So super special. This is the kind of deck that caters to the new player, the person building their first EDH deck. That is the first type of player that we are catering to with the CadPop Decktech. The next type of person, or the next demographic of person, if you will, is the person who is maybe branching out, building their second deck, expanding their horizons, becoming more familiar with the format, stepping outside their comfort zone, what have you. This particular deck might cater to the third group as well, the nostalgia player, the player looking to build around a pet card, or like Greg, build something that is meaningful to his niece based on what is meaningful to him. He's passing it along, he's paying it forward, so this is a special deck for that reason. Now, let's get to the commanders. Will Kenrith is a Planeswalker Will, 4 loyalty, blue 4, +2 until your next turn. Up to 2 target creatures, each has power and toughness 0/3 and loses all abilities. His -2, target player draws 2 cards until your next turn. Instants and sorcery and planeswalker spells that player casts costs 2 less. You would typically target yourself, but this was built or designed for a 2-headed giant format, so you could target your teammate. In this case, we'll target ourselves. Our stuff will cost less. And this is, I'm going to call it a Spellslinger deck. And I don't think we've done one of those yet, so we're treading new ground. This is great. There's a newsflash. There's 27 instants in this deck, so Spellslinger. Anyways, Will's -8. Target player gets an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You can choose new targets. And of course, Will and Rowan Kenrith can both be your partners. And of course, they partner with each other, so they both exist in your command zone at the same time. Rowan Kenrith, red 4 loyalty, legendary Planeswalker Rowan, +2 during target player's next turn. Each creature that player controls attacks if able. You target your opponent, of course. -2, Rowan Kenrith deals 3 damage to each tapped creature target player controls. And her -8 is target player gets an emblem with whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, copy it, you can choose new targets. So one copies abilities, one copies spells. I think Rowan has more utility. In general, just casual EDH, Will is more powerful because copying a spell, particularly in this deck, is going to be more powerful. All that being said, let's get to some of the business. Let's get to what makes some of the deck hum. We'll kind of blow through it quickly, and then we'll get to the particular spells. We're going to start off with artifacts, and we don't have custom categories today, but we've got 9 artifacts, and most of them represent some form of ramp or acceleration. We've got Arcane Signet, Commander Sphere. Is it Cluestone? Is it Keyrune? Is it Locket? Is it Signet? Holy smokes, lots of is it. Primal Amulet, which is a 4-drop, instant and sorceries you cast cost 1 less. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a charge counter on it. Then if there are 4 or more, it flips over into add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. When you use this mana to cast an instant or sorcery, you copy it. Makes things cheaper or copies things. And remember, if you've got Will's ultimate with the emblem of whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you copy it. If you cast it with the flip side of Primal Amulet, which is Primal Wellspring, you copy it, then copy it again. So you would actually get 3 instances of whatever you cast instead of 1 or 2. Very powerful. We've got a Soul Ring and then a Twinning Staff. And that again is a artifact that says if you would copy a spell 1 or more times, you copy it an additional time. And it's got 7 tap, copy target instant or sorcery you control, and then you choose new targets. I think it goes without saying from now on, when you copy something, you choose new targets. By and large, in an Is It deck, that's how we're going to ramp. Now, enchantments, we've got a Jace's Sanctum. That too reduces the cost of instants and sorceries. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you scry 1. 4 mana, I'm going to call it ramp because there are instants and sorceries in here that cost more and or cost X or have X in their casting cost. And reducing the cost of something that has X in its casting cost, we know essentially just adds 1 to whatever you pump into X. You declare what X is and then pay the mana equal to whatever you declare, but because it costs 1 less, you actually get 1 more than what you pay for. So you get 1 more when you cast X's. We've got a Propaganda that makes things that attack us cost 2 generic mana. That's a little bit of a control card, a little bit of a just help keep me alive till I can cast one of my 6-drop commander type card. We've got a Smoke. This is old school. I like this one, and I've played this card. This is an enchantment for red. Players cannot untap more than 1 creature during their untap phase. A little bit Winter Orby without actually being Winter Orb, or whatever orb of choice you play in your control deck. Essentially, this is going to keep creatures from attacking you. They're going to untap their utility creature, they're going to untap their mana dork, for example. They're not going to untap something that attacks you, unless it's going to kill you, in which case we have answers for with our instants. Before we get to the instants though, we do have planeswalkers, we've got sorceries, 3 planeswalkers, we've got a Ral, Is It Visory? Planeswalker Ral, 5 loyalty, 5 mana, +1. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and the other into your graveyard. -3, deals damage to target creature equal to the number of instants and sorcery cards in your graveyard. So this guy represents a little bit of a removal. You cast him for 5, you -3 him, he's still got 2 loyalty, and you can kill something, probably. His -8 is you get an emblem whenever you cast an instant or sorcery. The emblem deals 4 damage to any target, and you draw 2 cards. That's very powerful. I don't know how often it happens, but it is powerful. Next up, we've got Ral Storm Conduit. This is the good one when you can copy spells and people go accidentally infinite all the time, and I recommend people cut this card all the time because it goes infinite and you don't even mean it to. This is a 4 loyalty Ral for 4 mana. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals damage is going to be a theme in the deck. You're going to see it. His +2 is scry 1. His -2 is whenever you cast your next instant or sorcery, you copy it. Essentially, when you're running enough things like Twin Cast and Wild Ricochet, Fork and stuff, and you copy a copy spell, you can use the copy to continuously copy the original spell, copying your copy again. and then you get a whole bunch of copies on the stack of something. That's how it's probably going to work. We'll see. Finally, though, we've got a Saheeli Sublime Artificer, and this is an Is It Hybrid 1 Planeswalker Saheeli for 5 loyalty. She's going to give you, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, which is a ton of them in this deck, again, 40 some of them, 45 of them or whatever, you get a 1/1 colorless servo artifact. Her -2 is target artifact you control becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature you control until end of turn, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Realistically, we're playing her for her static ability. You cast something, we're going to get a servo, and we're going to use those servos to block, probably keep us alive. On to the creatures. We've got 13 of them here. We've got a Baral, Chief of Compliance as the first one. Human Wizard, 1/3 for 2. Instants and sorceries cost 1 less. And whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card and then discard a card. Based on a lot of the includes, we're playing Baral because he's making our stuff cost less. And that's going to be important when we copy stuff and have to pay or want to copy something additionally. You'll see. We've got a Curious Homunculus. That's a 2-drop, 1/1, taps for a colorless, but you can only cast instants and sorceries with that. Sure, at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 3 or more instants and sorceries in your graveyard, you flip it, and it flips into Voracious Reader, which has prowess, which means whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and, of course, instants and sorceries we cast cost 1 less, and we're going to see that prowess is probably going to be pretty powerful. Dual Caster Mage, got flash, copies something. Flux Channeler, cast a non-creature, it proliferates. Goblin Electromancer, 2 mana, 2/2, so it's right on curve, right on pace. Instants and sorceries cost 1 less. Mercurial Chemister, a 5-drop, 2/3. You pay blue tap, draw 2 cards, or red tap, discard a card. He deals damage equal to the discarded card's converted mana cost. So maybe deal some damage, maybe draw some cards. If we can untap them, maybe both. Nibulus of Frost, another prowess card. Whenever we cast a non-creature, gets +1. This one flies, is a 3/3 for 4, and also has, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, tap target creature an opponent controls, and it doesn't untap during its opponent's next untap. So if we can cast a whole ton of instants and sorceries with prowess creatures, while tapping all of our opponent's blockers, we can get in for a ton of damage. And that doesn't even include all of the damage we're going to do from the other creatures in the deck. We've got a Portal Mage. When it enters the battlefield during Declare Attacker step, you can reselect which player or planeswalker's target attacking creature is attacking. Essentially, you just say, this one isn't attacking me, it's attacking over there instead. And you save yourself while still damaging someone else. Very cool. And relevant creature type, Wizard. You'll see why in a few minutes. Another wizard, Serendib Sorceress. Color shifted Coffin Queen for anybody who doesn't know from way back in whatever set Coffin Queen was from. This is blue 1 for a 1/1 human wizard. Target creature other than Serendib Sorcerer has base power and toughness 0/2 until end of turn. Again, it's going to negate or dissuade attackers. That's what this card is for. Finally, Young Pyromancer. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. That's going to give us lots of bodies, lots of blockers, potential attackers if we can tap down our opponent's entire board. Okay, final set of creatures, if you will. We've got Electrostatic Field, Firebrand Archer, and Gutter Snipe. These creatures all deal damage when we cast an instant or sorcery. So if we can continuously cast, or whenever we cast, we draw, and because we've got so many cost reducers, we can continuously cast and dig, for example, these are going to deal damage. Now, Electrostatic Field, Firebrand Archer, those deal 1 damage per cast. Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage. And what's great about these is they're each opponent. They deal 1 damage to each opponent, or Gutter Snipe 2 damage to each opponent. Good stuff. Now, we've seen the creatures, we've seen the ramp, we've seen a little bit about how the deck protects itself, how it uses creatures that usually attack we're using those for protection. We've seen planeswalkers that are furthering our game plan instead of just gaining us value. I love that. I love using planeswalkers. I love using enchantments to further our game plan instead of providing value. Very important for the new players to understand that planeswalkers should expedite the game, in my opinion, instead of dragging it out to try and find value. I think that planeswalkers should expedite your plan. That's what they should be in your deck for. Now, let's look at the real goods. Let's start with sorceries. Let's get them out of the way. We've got Banefire, Earthquake, Red Sun Zenith, and Rolling Earthquake. Those are our X spells. They deal X damage, either to target creature, target player, or all creatures and all players. Red Sun Zenith is important in this group because it has flashback. You can cast it from your graveyard. Additionally, Faithless Looting, Early Game Draw, and Flashback Draw. Heat Shimmer and Twin Flame. They make copies of tokens. And these cards are important because they combo with Dual Caster Mage. We cast a Twin Flame, for example, for 2 mana, targeting a creature we control to make a copy of it. That's what Twin Flame does. In response, we cast our Dual Caster Mage, copying the Twin Flame. Twin Flame copies the Dual Caster Mage that's now on the battlefield. The Dual Caster Mage copy enters the battlefield and copies the original Twin Flame. Twin Flame copies the Dual Caster Mage. And that makes an infinite loop. And of course, Twin Flame and Heat Shimmer both put all the tokens onto the battlefield, untapped, and they have haste. It eliminates the need to find them haste. It eliminates the need for something like Purphoros, God of the Forge. It just lets them attack in when you have an opening. Great little combo. It only costs 5 mana. You could go Mountain, Soul Ring, Signet. You would need a 1-drop off of your Signet because Twin Flame does have to target a creature you control. You can't just rely on your opponent's mana dork and then go infinite off of that. You do need something, but that combo can be assembled as early as turn 2 on a 5 mana turn 2 with a 1-drop from turn 1 or a 0-drop. So that is possible. Moving on though, we've got a Shenanigans, destroy target artifact, and it has Dredge. If we were going to draw and Shenanigans is in our graveyard, we can mill 1, because it has Dredge 1, and return Shenanigans back to our hand. Very cool. Recursive artifact removal on a sorcery which the deck cares about, and probably we can cast it just for red, which is great. Finally, final sorcery that is, we've got a Mind Bomb. Deals 3 damage to each player, just for blue. That's it. That's weird, right? This is blue lightning bolt, sure. Each player may choose and discard up to 3 cards to prevent that amount of damage to them. Want to take 3? Discard none. Want to take 2? Discard a card. Want to take 1 damage? Discard 2 cards. Want to take 0 damage, discard 3 cards. So not only are you dealing direct damage in blue, you're also potentially making them discard. Very unique card, very cool, and I love to see it. And if you are building a Spellslinger burn type deck, if you're including like the lightning bolts and the rift bolts and you're copying those, I think Mind Bomb is a perfect include because you can shred somebody's hand, or you can just further your strategy with another 3 damage for 1 mana card. Very excellent include. And originally from the dark, which of course I always appreciate. All right, final category. This is our instance. And I was struggling a little bit on how to kind of put them all together or how to clump them, how to custom category them, because there are 27 of them. I think I'm just going to skim them and tell you what the counter spells are. Remember, we are playing Baral, Chief of Compliance, so whenever we counter something, we can draw, then discard. So let's do that, then let's go through them and talk about the minutia of the ones that aren't counter spells. We've got an Archmage's Charm. This is a modal one, bad one to start on, but here we are. Blue, 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 choose 1, counter a spell, target player draws 2, or gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. Probably going to counter a spell. We've got OG counter spell. Disallow, counter a spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Is it charm? Counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2, deals 2, or draw 2, then discard 2. Misdirection. This is a free make your opponent target something else, so it's kind of like a counterspell. Narset's Reversal. This copies something and bounces it. So this also could be a counter spell, but probably we're going to copy our own thing, then bounce that spell to our hand. Negate counters a non-creature. Pyroblast counters something blue. Red Elemental Blast counters something blue. Swerve, that for blue-red is change the target of target spell with a single target. That's essentially, again, a counter spell. If a removal spell's coming at our creature, we can just make it target a different creature. We're still getting our thing not destroyed, and we are furthering the game's state in some way. I really like cards like this. And Swerve at 2 mana, great. Finally, and this is kind of our card that cares about wizards. This is Wizard's Retort. Blue 1. This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a wizard, and remember how many wizards we had in our creature section. And it simply says counter target spell. Essentially, counter target spell for blue in this deck. That all being said, let's get to our doublers. We've got Expansion. Is it hybrid? Copy target spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. And this is a split card. The other side is Explosion. Red, blue, X. It deals X damage to any target and target player draws X cards. Very excellent. Certainly a great spell to copy because when you copy it, it's on the stack. So the copy is equal to what you pay into X. So you can copy that, copy it again, and X equals maybe like, even if it's just X equals 4, you copy it, then you're drawing 8 and dealing 8. You copy it again, you're drawing 12, dealing 12. Very powerful. Narset's Reversal, again, that is a copy, sort of. Reverberate is going to copy something. Repeated Reverberation, also in the deck, copy something twice. Twin Cast, copy something. And Wild Ricochet. Choose new targets for an instant or sorcery, so it's kind of like a counterspell. And we get to copy it, which is all upside at 4 mana. That's great. Now, couple more value pieces. We've got an Anticipate. We look at the top 3, put them on the top, put them on the bottom. Blue Sun Zenith. This is another Xer that if we can make a ton of mana and then draw X and then copy, we're copying X. Very good. Brainstorm. Not the greatest spell to copy, but draw 3, then put 2 from your hand on top of your library in any order. If you can maybe crack a fetch land, which we aren't playing, but I would recommend if you're copying Brainstorms, you can avoid a Brainstorm lock by, in response to the original spell resolving, because the copy will resolve first, you can crack your fetch land and shuffle the things that you didn't want in your hand away to see a new 3 cards from the original Brainstorm that you resolve post fetch land. Great little trick. I like it. The budget of this deck is about $161, $165. If Greg and his niece want to up that budget and develop the deck a little bit more, the first suggestion I would make to go along with that Brainstorm would be fetch lands to do the little trick that I just said, because there are a ton of copy effects. Moving on, we've got Lightning Bolt, we've got Pyromancer's Jest. That makes all creatures target player controls into blue frogs that are 1/1s. Pongify makes creatures into monkeys. Reality Shift makes creatures into Manifest, the top card of the library. Great against other Spellslinger decks because what you're manifesting probably isn't a creature, so that's great. Reroute? I missed this one, sorry. This is change the target of target activated ability with a single target, then draw a card. So kind of a counterspell or a swerve for an activated ability. A little bit niche, but because it does say draw a card, we could target something that we didn't want to target and then reroute it just to cash that reroute into draw a card and reroute it to the thing that we did want to target. And finally, we've got Volt Charge. This is Lightning Bolt number 2 at 3 mana, but it proliferates. And that's important because we are running 5 Planeswalkers, 2 of which are our commanders. And remember, Will Kenrith's ultimate is -8. We can achieve that a turn sooner if we proliferate just 1 time and have him not die, that is, I should say. And we're just going to copy everything that we do. Insanely powerful. You're dealing double the damage. You're drawing twice the cards. If you counter something and somebody counters your counterspell, they're going to have to counter another counterspell because we're copying our counterspell. And we can use that copy to counter their spell again. So they need 2 counterspells for our 1, which is just great. And that's the deck. I love it. I love copying spells. This is about 66% of my Calamax deck, which includes green, but mostly just for things like Harrow and crop rotation and some +1 type effects. I love decks like this. I love copying spells. There's so many broken things you can do. And what's great is this deck isn't doing that. And I think that that's perfect because when, like Greg is doing, when you're teaching somebody the fundamentals, maybe how the stack works, maybe the social nature of Commander, and you're playing cards like Wild Ricochet and Repeated Reverberation and Ral Storm Conduit that are so easily abusable, and when you're not doing that, you're exercising restraint, you're making decks fun, but you're still getting value and you're still doing the things that those kinds of cards do, and you're still feeling good for doing those kinds of things, because I'm telling you, nothing feels better than copying an explosion when you've put like 8 mana into it, right? Like late game, you go red, blue, 8, then you copy it. You're dealing 24 damage, you're drawing 24, you're maybe eliminating a player or two and setting yourself up to just crush the next player. I'd very much recommend a Reliquary Tower in this deck. Sometimes you need Reliquary Tower if it's like turn 2 or 3 and you brainstorm and you're just like, oh geez, I've got 1 extra card in my hand than I should have. Or if you do kind of mid-game explosion to kill a creature and draw cards, you might have too many cards, right? So in a 2-color deck, I can see, cutting one of the 12 islands or cutting one of the 12 mountains. I get that it's easy to have 12 and 12, right? Especially if you're teaching a younger player, but a Reliquary Tower would be great. There is a ton of fixing. There is a Temple of Epiphany, so you can get the Scry, and that does help you with knowing what's coming and knowing if you got to hold counters or hold removal, right? All important stuff to kind of develop into a young mind when you're teaching somebody. Now, I wish I could talk about some crazy combo where you copy something 87 times and you go crazy, but I kind of covered it with Ral Storm Conduit. Whenever you cast your next instant or sorcery, you can copy that spell. That's all fine and well, but where it gets really good is if you have 2 copy things in your hand. So you cast an instant or sorcery, or you wait for your opponent to cast one. Okay, great. You cast a twin cast or reverberate targeting that spell. Let's say it's Lightning Bolt, just to make it easy. We cast Lightning Bolt, then we twin cast it. Then we cast an expansion, let's say. Expansion targets twin cast on the stack and have the twin cast target twin cast again. Just like the dual caster mage heat shimmer combo that I explained earlier, the copy of twin cast always targets the original of itself again, and you create a loop of infinite twin casts. And remember, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Ral deals 1 damage to target opponent or target planeswalker. And that's just gonna mow everybody down. It's essentially a twin cast machine gun. So, couple combos in the deck. I love it. Clean, as long as you know how to use the stack. And if you're a new player, I would recommend that you spend some time reading the comp rules or discussing with players who understand how the stack works to learn these types of combos, or just to learn how the stack works in general, because it's gonna solve and alleviate a lot of potential arguments or disagreements on how it works or who did what first, the stack and priority. And of course, we've done episodes of Commander Ad Populum on both of those things. You can check back in the CadPop backlog for all that kind of stuff. But if we do have to revisit it, let me know at CadPopCast on Twitter. You can get at me by sending a message to the Commander Ad Populum Facebook group, or shooting me a message, Ryan Panef, on Facebook. I'm the only one. Or an email to cadpopcast@gmail.com. Greg Jones, great deck. I hope your niece has all the fun in the world with it. I know that I would. I hope she enjoys the Altered Art Commanders, which will be featured in the YouTube video. Big thanks to Joe for that. Big thank you to FusionGamingOnline.com. They're your source for all your gaming needs. All your twin cast and copy and planeswalker and combo needs. So head on over there. When you do, make sure you leave a note to the vendor at checkout that Ryan from Commander at Populum sent you. It helps the show out. And of course, big thank you to all of the Patreon supporters at patreon.com/CadPopCast. They get their decks featured, they get their altars featured, and all of the other little perks that are associated with being a patron. The Discord, the altar of the day on Twitter, etc. Couldn't make the show without you guys. If you're watching on YouTube and you're still here, don't forget to join me every Wednesday for Commander Ad Populum proper. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and check out all of the altered art tutorial content in the various playlists that I got on the channel. And for the podcast listeners, I will see you next Wednesday.